Hi guys, I want to read you a book called Extra Yarn, which is a really cool book written by Mac Barnett, illustrated by John Classen. In fact, this book is so cool that it is a Caldecott honor book. And so I'm going to kind of scooch way up so you can really see all the detail in the illustrations. While you're listening to me read, I want you to be thinking about what you think that the big idea of the story is. What is the message that the author is trying to have you think about? And maybe it's a life lesson for you. So, extra yarn. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. It really is sort of a dark looking town, just black and white. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she had made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." See, I guess it's distracting because everyone in this classroom is just wearing black and dark colors. And so it would be distracting to have this colorful sweater here. So she said, "I'll just knit one for everyone." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." That's not a very big box of yarn. But it turned out she could. And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for other animals too. Soon people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. I like the mailbox sweater and the birdhouse sweater. Things began to change in that little town. Look at the difference from the little town in the beginning of the story to the little town now. She's really making a big change for her community. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day an archduke who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabel. "Little girl," said the Archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1,000,000. "No, thank you," said Annabel, who was busy knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. "2,000,000, he said. Annabel shook her head. "No, thanks." "10,000,000, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabel. "I won't sell the yarn." I think she really likes doing things for her community. I think she really cares about knitting, making people happy, kind of sharing. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabel's house, and they stole the box and took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box and he lifted its lid and he looked inside. Can you predict what he's going to see inside the box? I think I know what I hope he sees inside the box. I was right. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But look, it's floating away on some ice. It turned out she was. And that book is called Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett. So I know that there's a lot of good things happening in that book and a lot of things that are happening that you can kind of think about when you're reflecting on your life. I noticed, for example, that I think a big theme is sharing and kind of looking after your community and trying to do what's right for them. But I think really the idea in this book has more to do with giving rather than taking, because the Archduke, he just wanted the yarn for himself. And so maybe the magic didn't work for him because of that. I don't know. What are you thinking? All right, talk to you soon. Bye now.